Welcome, everybody. It's good to see you. I'm Andy Rich. I'm the Dean of the Colin Powell School, and it is my privilege to welcome you to this installment of the Rick and Susan Goings Conversations in Leadership. We're thrilled to have a full crowd here in the room, and we want to welcome everybody who's watching through the live stream. So the Colin Powell School is the School of Social Sciences here at City College. Those of you who are part of the school know that we're also the home of the leadership programs, the public service programs, the business programs of the college, and we're the largest student division of City College with about 4,000 students. And our mission is a modest one, which is to turn the nation's most diverse student body into tomorrow's global leaders. And it is an extraordinary mission that was given to us by General Colin Powell, who, for most of you, was a graduate of City College. 1958, born in this neighborhood in Harlem, but grew up in the South Bronx, and was the son of Jamaican immigrants. And when it came to college, it was City College or nowhere. And he went on to become the first Black American to be chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the top of the military chain of command, to be the head of the National Security Council, and to be the first Black American who was U.S. Secretary of State. And when he finished his service to our country, he came back to City College, his alma mater, and we put him in a room with students just like those who are assembled here today, and he asked them to go around and introduce themselves, tell them a little bit about themselves and their path to City College. And as they did that, this was now 2004, so 20-some years ago, he heard his story in the stories that all of you bring to City College. And at that moment, he recommitted himself to the college and made City College his most important philanthropic and board activity in the last 20 years of his life. And one of the things he most enjoyed doing was bringing people in his world, people out in the realms of leadership in the private sector and in public service, to City College, to the place that he started his life at. And two of the people that he tried as much as he could to bring to City College during the course of his lifetime were Rick and Susan Goings. Rick Goings was the chairman and CEO of Tupperware Brands. Susan Goings was the co-founder and chairwoman of the World Youth Clubs, and he became good friends with them through the Boys and Girls Club of America. And sadly, they did not come to City College while he was alive, but almost immediately after he passed, we began a conversation about something that they might do here at City College to honor General Powell, and in fact, something that would bring them to City College. And that is what gave birth to the Rick and Susan Goings Conversations in Leadership series. We have hosted a range of extraordinary leaders over the course of our series so far. Gayle King from CBS News, former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, Cristina Jimenez, the founder of United We Dream, recently Rashida Jones, who until recently was the head of MSNBC. And the thread that tied these leaders together are some of the same attributes that we attribute to General Powell. These were folks who found a path to leadership at the highest levels of their chosen professions, but for whom that path was in many ways unexpected, and therefore in some ways kind of extraordinary. And almost all of them started from modest beginnings and had lots of twists and turns, had some disappointments along the way before they found themselves in a place of leadership. And it has been quite wonderful over the last now, I want to say 3 years, to have this series of conversations that in some ways uncovers some of the pathways that are common to those who become leaders in their professions. And so today, we are very honored to be joined by Julissa Reynoso, who was the first woman to be ambassador to Spain and Andorra. She was ambassador before that to Uruguay, and she was the first lady, Jill Biden's chief of staff. She has had a distinguished career in public service. She has had a distinguished career in the law and at a private law firm. And yet her story for how it all started is one that has some parallels actually to General Powell, because she is a young person from New York City, someone who grew up in the South Bronx. And as I learned just a moment ago, someone who today lives just 3 blocks away. And so we are thrilled to have Julissa Reynoso with us today And we're thrilled that you're all here as well. I'm going to join Ambassador Reynoso for a conversation for, maybe 20, 25 minutes, and then we want to open it up to questions. So know that there's going to be lots of opportunity for you to ask questions, and you can begin to think about those. And so please join me in welcoming Ambassador Julissa Reynoso. Yeah.
Thank you, Dean. How are you?
Good. And there's a microphone right here. Thank you very much for doing this. So I should say that Julissa Reynoso and I met last year at a dinner that was planned by one of our board members, now the co-chair of our board, Marco Antonio Strawn, someone who had brought leaders from across different sectors together to become more familiar with what the Colin Powell School is doing and what we're doing at City College. And I will say, when Ambassador Reynoso arrived for the dinner, she was the last person to arrive and the person who arrived with the most existing knowledge of City College, as it turns out, because she is our neighbor. And it's great. At that time, we realized how wonderful it would be, or I certainly did, to have you in conversation, and I'm grateful that you're here.
Thank you.
We often like to start these conversations with your kind of origin story, and I know yours is an interesting one and one that will resonate strongly with a number of our students. You're originally from the Dominican Republic, and I wonder if you wouldn't mind just kind of telling us a little bit about you from your earliest days.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here at City. I am, as I mentioned, I am a neighbor. I live very close. In fact, I just walked it here from my house. And I've been living here for about 10 years in the neighborhood. I was born in the Dominican Republic and came to the United States at the age of 7 in the 80s. And I go back to the Dominican Republic often. I grew up in the South Bronx, and I went to college at Harvard and all over the place, and ended up coming back home to law school at Columbia. I am from the Dominican Republic. I'm a very proud Dominican American. But more than anything else, I'm a very proud New Yorker. But this city has really made me who I am. And everywhere I go in the world, I try to represent the city in its diversity, its grit, its endurance, its complexities. And so I'm very happy to be part of the organ of the city, which is this particular college.
Do you mind sharing a little more about growing up? And half of the students at City College are immigrants.
Yes.
And so their story is your story. And what it was like for you coming to a new country as a child, and I think you had to learn a new language
Right.
Early on, and how you found your community and how you kind of found your pathway to school. If I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
did you go to Catholic school in the Bronx?
Yes, I arrived in the South Bronx in the 80s, in the early 80s, at a time when the city was going through a very tough time. And that part of the city in particular was quite violent and had a whole lot of external and internal points of crisis, let's call it, from crime to drugs to extreme poverty. The neighborhood was not what I expected, let's just say. I grew up in the Dominican Republic as a child in a very rural part of the Dominican Republic. There was no electricity, there was no running water, but it was a safe place, and it was very communal, and people were, there was a sense of community there. That arriving to the city in the 80s, the early 80s, at first glance, I didn't see. It was the other extreme. It was urbanism at its worst. That said, with time, I got to meet good people, and there were decent people trying to do the right thing in the city at that time in my neighborhood, and I really feel blessed that I grew up there and did well. And the Catholic school system, I went to Catholic school from the day I arrived, really helped me become who I am today. So sadly, today we had the passing of the Pope, and what the Catholic schools did for me, and a lot of people in my neighborhood, was transformative for generations of young people.
I was going to ask you, you went from Catholic school, you could have come to City College, but you made a bad decision, and you went to Harvard instead.
I wanted to leave the city because I wanted to move away from from my parents telling me what to do. It was too close to home.
So but that is not a well-forged path. That is a hard path to take. What happened, when you were in high school, I suppose, and when you started to realize that a place like Harvard might be in your reach, and then what happened for you when you decided you wanted a place like Harvard to be in your reach?
So in school, I enjoyed school. I love learning and the academics and the rigor and the competitiveness and the liberty that comes with understanding things. And so as a student in high school, once I learned English, enough English that is, I'm still learning English, to do well academically, the teachers, the sisters at that time were very encouraging of me and asked me to think about these schools that I had never heard of, Princeton, Harvard, Yale. And so I applied at their recommendation, but I frankly had no idea what I was getting myself into. I knew they were in different cities that were far, but not so far, that I could get there by bus. And so the thought of leaving home was difficult. I had left home before as an immigrant, but I also had an interest in kind of being just far away, to be a bit freer from kind of the conditions of the immediate community and of my family. So it was a good balance, and that's why I chose to go to Harvard.
And one of the things that I think a lot of our students contend with, and frankly, a lot of us just contend with in life, is imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. Just this sense that, spaces aren't made for us, or opportunities are not made for us. It seems like you must have had to contend with that from a pretty early age. And I wonder both how you dealt with it, when you might have had some moment of realization that you had power in this world to make a difference.
It's a work in progress. You never kind of fully get over it. I think having those initial breakthroughs as an immigrant of being able to be okay in a city like this, in a place that's so different. I always say, if I could make it in the Bronx, I could make it anywhere. And I believe that. I mean, especially at that time when there were so many temptations and so many things that could have gone wrong. I mean, it was also a lot of luck. And I was around people who really cared for me and opened doors that, that's lucky. I helped I walked through them, but I could have failed many times along the way. So I think having those opportunities and learning how to deal with trusting your instinct and your judgment from a young age, because it was survival, really kind of helped make you, at least made me, very, very convince myself that other things were much easier in life once I got through that initial stage of growing up and becoming a graduate of the Bronx.
Did you know when you went off to Harvard what you wanted to study?
I originally wanted to be a scientist. I was very good at math. I think that's why I got in, because of the math score, not because of the reading, the verbal. Because English was not my original language. I was still, struggling to be the best I could be with the language. But I was very good at math, and so I thought I could be a scientist, or physics was my original kind of thought. But I got there, and I learned that although I did very well in Catholic school in the Bronx, there were kids who were, had done calculus, 3, and were already like astrophysicists by the age of 15. So I was behind some of them. So I decided, or I kind of was told, that I needed to adjust my expectations to do okay at Harvard. So I decided to do political science, which was, I guess, the next best thing for me. Do a lot of economics, which had obviously math, but was not as, frankly, as stringent, as demanding as I think I could have managed if I had stuck with physics or some other hard science. But at that point, I just wanted to graduate, so there you go. But yes, I'm a frustrated scientist.
Well, we're a school of social sciences. I'm a political scientist, so you made great choices.
Yes,
That many of the
yes.
students in this room have made, either between economics or political science. When did you decide or kind of come to an interest in public service?
I always, growing up as a kid in the Bronx, you know, between my family and my faith and in the church and in the school, there was a lot of encouragement to try to help people. There were so many things to help with. So as a young kid, I was always exposed to people trying to help each other because you could never do anything on your own. There were, everything from helping to translate things for people who didn't speak English, to filling out forms, to taking care of the elderly lady or the kids whose parents had to go work who were home and needed babysitting. It was intrinsically a communal society driven by a lot of need. And so because of that, as a younger or young adult, I didn't really know any better. It's kind of you grew up that way. You assume the rest of your life should be that way because that's the way you were raised. And so it went from the immediate community need of the neighborhood and your family to other things you witnessed on television, or things you heard from your friends, or things you saw in the street of the city or in other countries. So that's how I became intrigued. I've always, I think, been a public servant in my own, however you define my public, but as an adult, I learned that the public was more elaborate and more larger than my block or my building.
So you get to the end of college, you've been a political science major. I wonder, because a number of the folks in this room are reaching the end of college and are trying to figure out what you do next. So can you remember back to your thought process? And it sounds like at that point, you had been quick to want to get out of New York, but maybe you were ready now to come back to New York.
Yes, so I went to college at Harvard, and then I went to England for a graduate degree in economics, development economics, and I did that for a bit. I enjoyed Europe. It was the first time I really lived outside of the Americas, and I learned kind of a different way of life and how things were slower in Europe, but also very interesting in the history of a lot of modern thought, and I just was intrigued with it, and it really helped me become a better, I think, thinker in person and more open to different ideas. But I wanted to come home, and I missed my house. I had been away for almost 6 years. So I came back to Columbia in the law school because I thought, okay, I could do public work, do things for the common good as a lawyer, hopefully through the justice system, and at the same time, if pay my bills as a lawyer. So it seemed like a good balance.
And so you came back, you went to law school, and then, and I read your bio, but I may have this wrong.
Uh-huh.
You worked in New York City
Yes.
first, and then in your first stint in public service.
Uh-huh.
And then I wonder if you might just describe that path, and then how you both became interested in national politics,
Yeah.
and how you ultimately became interested in diplomacy.
So after law school, I went to work for a federal judge, which is a very kind of normal path for a lot of law students, especially students who want to be academics. So there was a part of me that thought I wanted to be a professor. And I still do. I still teach once in a while. So they thought, okay, I thought this will be a rigorous apprenticeship, if you will, to become a very good legal mind. So I worked for a federal judge, the chief judge of the Southern District of New York for 2 years. Her name is Laura Taylor Swain, fantastic lawyer and legal and justice and judge. And then I went to a law firm, a very prestigious law firm in the city. Did that for several years, and I said, I want to go save the world. So I joined the New York City Department of Education to work, and I worked with one of my professors who was then in charge of accountability. His name is Jim Liebman. He was a professor of the law school of Columbia. And I went to work with him, and it was the hardest job I've ever had. I did it for a year, and I was like, take me back to the private law firm. The city is too much, too chaotic. It was at that time. I did what I wanted to do, which was to at least try to put forth some ideas for reform, but I said, okay, I'm back to law practice. And I did that for a year and went back to my law firm. I did the lawyering for a bit more. And then I joined the Senate, Hillary Clinton's Senate campaign. And then she decided to run for president. This was 2006, I think she announced her pursuit. This was the first time she ran when there was no other real candidate, when Barack Obama was not in the picture yet. And so she was our senator from New York, and I decided to help her in her candidacy to become the president of the United States. I was a young, I think it was like 30 or something, and I was volunteering, nothing important. But I was so in awe of her that I decided to volunteer.
How did you, kind of going back to when you went to law school and came out and you clerked, and how did you build a sense of trust that our politics were a place where you could find a place for yourself? And I ask this question because I think we're living through a moment in which a lot of people are having trouble feeling trust in a lot of institutions, including government. And young people are trying to kind of figure out if there's a path into public service for themselves. This was a different moment for sure, but I just wonder if there was ever a time when you came to this realization that the government wasn't something beyond you, but really something that you could join and make a difference in.
Well, I mean, it helps to have people like Hillary Clinton as your mentors and people who are leading the way, and others, obviously, who worked with her. So I was so inspired by her commitment to basically promoting the best of the country and thinking that humans could, really do good things, especially people in government and in public service. And I believed her, and I believe her today. And because of her, I joined the federal government. I mean, she was the main reason I became a State Department person. I was not a career. I didn't take a test, like hopefully some of you will. She invited me to join her team in 2009 when she became President Obama's Secretary of State. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, no idea. I had been to Washington, here and there, but to work at the State Department and as a senior person was shocking to me. But she trusted her instincts, and I trusted her, so I quit my job and went to work for her in Washington.
Going back to when you started to volunteer in a campaign, I think a lot of folks wouldn't know, how do you decide you admire somebody who's working in politics, they're looking for help.
Yeah.
But the path between they're looking for help and you being the person who can help is often hard to figure out.
Uh-huh.
How did you do it, and how could others do it?
You got to show up. It sounds really, it sounds mythical and really complicated, because these are very important, larger-than-life people, but they're just normal human beings who also need support and volunteers and people who are faithful and loyal and consistent. And the trick for me has been showing up, being present, and related to that, not quitting on people. It was very easy, both for Biden, with Hillary and with Biden. They went through, I joined I joined the Hillary campaign when she was the only one. Then she lost the primary to Obama, and I never quit. I was with her till after people were pushing her out. I was like, I'm with you till the end. And I said, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to have a job. But the world is, she remembered that I was with her till the end. And so when she became Secretary of State, I was one of the few people that was there with her till the end. So she called me and I joined. And it was a relationship of trust. She knew I was loyal. With Biden, more recently, there was a time when Biden was completely out of it for a while. I also volunteered for Biden when he was, at the very beginning. And then there were like 20 other candidates, and he was one of the last. He lost several of the primaries at the beginning, if you remember. And I was with him till the end. And then when he bounced back, I was there. So you have to show up, but you also have to stay. And something you're gonna lose. I've lost tons. I volunteered with Al Gore, with Kerry, remember him? And you lose elections. And obviously Hillary lost twice. But it becomes a small circle. After a while, people start remembering, at least your own party, who you are. And if they know that you are somebody who shows up, who's loyal and has something substantive to add, you normally get pulled in. But it takes time. It's a relationship. You're not gonna be overnight, the go-to person. But I've been at it I had relationships with the Democratic electoral process that goes back 20-some years.
Can you unpack what it means to be a volunteer? So when you say I started to volunteer for Secretary Clinton.
I remember this is January 2008. It was January 2nd, 2008, and I was in Iowa for my birthday, that's my birthday, the door knocking in a cold, freezing town in the middle of nowhere with a friend of mine that I got to volunteer, and I was learning how to drive, almost ran over a cow or two. And many a person in Iowa decided that they had it with the people like me knocking on their door, and they own guns in Iowa. And let's just say there were points where I was like, I think we should not knock on that door anymore. So volunteerism means doing things like that. Sometimes sacrificing your birthday, your holiday. I was practicing law. I was a young lawyer at the time. I took all my holiday, my breaks, and instead of going to the beach to the Dominican Republic, like some of my friends, I was freezing in places, in Iowa, trying to make sure people voted for Hillary Clinton. She lost the Iowa caucus to a man named John Edwards, if you remember. These are the types of things you got to do besides being present and showing up, but not just showing up for the cocktail parties and the events that are pleasant, but really putting some thought and time into the operation, and traveling if you need to, and making phone calls, and taking weekends to help bring out the vote.
And how did you decide that politics was a passion? Public service is one thing, and there's lots, as I hope you might describe as we go along, there's lots of ways one could go into public service, but you have chosen politics in particular and got involved in campaigns and really formed a belief in the power of elections and the power of elected officials.
Yes.
I wonder if you could just speak to that a bit.
Yeah, so public service, as you said, I as a lawyer believed in the justice system and trying to do good through these public instruments and institutions. I believe in the government. I believe in the government's ability to do good things. That's why I joined the State Department. I've been in and out of the State Department for 10 years. It's a long time. I was at the White House. I was in the federal courts. These are institutions that are not based on individuals, but on rules and processes and history, and the history and kind of understanding that these institutions bring with it, and the leverage they have to make things happen. Politics is more individual, is more personalities, right? And I really believe that individuals can make a difference. And so I have to, given all the things that are going on in the world right now, here and everywhere, but here in our own country, we know that individuals can make a difference, for better or worse, right? So we know that whoever's in the White House is very important and has enormous leverage and has the platform to convene and spread ideas and messages that can really shape not only the country but the world and how we all get along or don't get along. So for me, it's really important to put my energy and time, and now, if fundraising efforts or whatever I can do to try to get the best person to represent me and my interests and my family and my community. And that's where the politics comes in.
when you describe the arc of your career, it sounds like it was a combination of incredibly hard work and taking a path that portions of which are kind of conventional for
Yeah.
lawyers, but then a lot of unconventional twists and turns and some luck factored in too. And I think a lot of young people are kind of figuring out, gosh, how do you craft a career? And I wonder if you can speak to that a little bit. That even with Hillary Clinton, let's take this as an example. You worked for her with a hope and dream that she would become president. Instead, she became Secretary of State.
Right.
And you ultimately became an ambassador. And I don't know if becoming an ambassador was something you had had in your sights 10 years
No
before
way.
that. So yeah, can you speak a little bit about that, I guess, and how opportunities come in your direction
Yeah.
and how you have to think about whether these are things I want to do and how am I going to make a difference with this opportunity, all of that.
Yes, so I am, whatever you decide to do, a lot of it is obviously luck and work, but it's also relationships and making sure people know that you are loyal and present and do the work, because at the end of the day, you can show up and be present, but if your work is not any good, then you definitely, you're out the door. So you got to keep proving yourself in every task and every position. And so with Secretary Clinton and with others, I have had to, just do the work and not, and then assume nothing. Assume it may end with that, but often it has not ended with that. You do the work, and then people are like, okay, she can do the work, so then maybe she can do this other work, and maybe she can do this other work. And it continues to open other opportunities because the world is so dynamic. And when I joined the State Department with her, I didn't know what she was going to ask me to do. I frankly didn't have a job title when I joined the State. At the beginning, it was just like, come join the State Department. I was like, okay, to do what? I don't know. So I just quit and went. I was young enough, I guess I could take that risk, more or less. I quit my the legal profession that looking back, I probably would not have done if it was today, I would have thought twice. But I did it without really thinking, well, maybe I won't be, can I ever recover from practicing law? Thankfully, I did come back into the law and did well and love what I do, and it's great. But at the time, I was just so enamored with the possibility of service and working for Secretary Clinton and the post-Bush era. Remember those years where we were going to become, build bridges with people and countries and societies throughout the world. I really had kind of a naive, but hopeful view of the world.
So the ambassador was ambassador to Uruguay during the Obama administration,
Yes.
under Secretary Clinton, and then was the ambassador to Spain and Andorra during the Biden administration, just to give folks a frame of reference. So there was a period of time in between when you were back practicing law, correct?
Yes.
And can you tell folks, what does an ambassador do? What was the job?
Well,
And
an
how did you
ambassador-
figure it out?
Yeah, good, yeah. Well, the good thing about the federal government, and I know we have people here from the federal. Are you the only federal government person here?
I think he is.
You want to say who you are, so that they. Yeah.
Thanks. My name is Eric Aldrich. I'm a diplomat in residence from New York and New Jersey. I look forward to working with you guys soon when the hiring freeze is over.
So Eric is the diplomat in residence at City College and at the Colin Powell School. And this is a program the State Department created many years ago for senior Foreign Service officers to spend time in a university setting, but really in the regions of the United States to recruit the next generation of Foreign Service officers. So Eric's path is a career path. I mean, you can maybe want to speak to this more than me.
Yes.
Not a political path. And so, yeah.
So Eric, we had just met, but I had met before, re-met, is a Foreign Service officer. Works at the State Department, although he's here for a couple of years, promoting the work of the State Department, hopefully recruiting some folks, hopefully. When I joined the State Department, Eric and people like Eric were essential for my learning of what am I supposed to do. That's the great thing about having a professional class of people who work in the government that are there irrespective of what political party or president is running the place, running the government. So the vast majority of people who work in our federal government including the State Department, are career folks like Eric. So they're there, and they have the memory and the institutional understanding to help folks like me who didn't know anything about how the world worked and how the State Department worked and how the federal government worked, which is a whole other story, what to do. So when I got to the State Department, I had Foreign Service officers help me, guide me to understand my job and, use my judgment and obviously my relationship with Secretary Clinton and others in her circle to try to do the best thing for the country. And when you ask me, what do ambassadors do? Ambassadors represent the United States and its citizens, all of you, most of you, and there are interests. And our interests are normally to provide some stability in the relationship with other countries, stability that allows for countries around the world to live in peace and citizens to have peace and prosperity. And that sounds very broad and lofty, but in practice, it's normally can be broken down into three categories. Prosperity and stability and peace normally are established to what we promote human rights and democratic principles. Second, we work with our partners to ensure that we have strong economic and commercial ties that are respectful, right? This is all in principle. Doesn't mean it happens in real life, but in principle, that's the idea. And thirdly, related to all this, that we promote safety and security for our people, for the American citizens, and by extension, people overseas, so that we can all live with some harmony and not have so much conflict and war. These are the things that I promoted, and I did with a bunch of other people who worked in my embassy, both in Uruguay, but in Spain was an even larger operation, and with all the federal agencies, from the State Department to the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, the drug enforcement people, the FBI, the Department of Commerce, the people from the Department of Agriculture, Department of Defense, the intelligence agencies. All these folks were all working together to pursue those objectives. But I was in charge, so they used to report to me. And then I used to coordinate our policy and our positions with Washington.
What were, if you can remember, what were the surprises of the job? Not the particular policy surprises, but just like, I would never have expected this was part of what.
The biggest surprise was, at the beginning, or more or less at the beginning, when I was like, I can do this. You watch TV, and you read books, and you're like, these people all speak in code, and they're the smartest people on earth, and I would never be able to do that or figure out what they're doing or how they get these things done. And then you actually are in the room, and you talk to some folks. Some of it, this is not a dismissive. I mean, things are hard, but they're not insurmountable. And so once I got the hang of it, and you gain enough confidence to at least ask questions and speak up, you realize that you can figure this out.
That's great. I want to ask about one other job you had, Chief of Staff to the First Lady. That sounds like a pretty cool job.
Yes.
What is that job?
So I was lucky enough to meet Jill Biden, probably 2017. 2017, when Joe Biden decided to was considering running for office against Donald Trump. And I hit it off. We bonded immediately. Obviously, the journey between that moment and him winning, between COVID and all the other things that happened in between, was not an easy path. But I stuck with it. And Dr. Biden, Jill Biden, and I became very close. And when he won, when the president won, I was lucky, blessed, privileged to have the opportunity to work in the White House with them. And that was one of the most intense, most rewarding, complicated times of my life. I was there for about a year and change during the transition from the first Trump administration, during COVID, during the attacks on the Capitol, during the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the economic crisis. I mean, you name it, we had it. And so it was really hard, really hard. I left there to go become ambassador to Spain, and I think most of us who were there at that time feel like we were graduating from, we all were at war together. It felt like we were at war with a lot of different things coming at us. And so we really felt like a community. There was a camaraderie that came from that experience that I have never felt before.
And what does the chief of staff do for them?
Everything, nothing and everything.
Nothing and everything.
We as the chief of staff, I was involved in all policy discussions, big picture policy, domestic policy, and foreign policy. So issues involving how to recover. We were at that point just figuring out how to make sure the country recovered from the recession that we had been living through during the COVID pandemic. So the policy discussions, the staffing, we just started a new government. So we had to staff the White House, or the senior people, the cabinet. We had to do all that work, try to get them through. So management of basically staffing and personnel, policy priorities, and whatever special projects came through. And I also had to deal with the House, literally the White House. So the White House, the operation of the White House reported to my office. So we had all the protocols in place to make sure, the people, because of COVID, that we didn't have people getting sick, that we had enough flowers. I mean, it was all of that, and it was a very intense time.
I have two more questions, and then we're going to open it up. So get your questions ready, please. One is, what have you learned about leadership through the course of your career to this point, and what would the lessons of leadership be for folks?
You have to, you got to keep learning continuously from other people and from yourself. Be open to new ideas, new ways of looking at the world. Keep asking the question why. I have learned to ask the question why most of the time, because people, sometimes you assume that somebody else knows why, but maybe they don't know why and don't want to ask the why. But asking why for me has been very helpful. So continuously learning, especially from others, asking the questions, and making sure you keep the people you work with well. You keep with them long term, because they will accompany you for better or worse, and there will be worse. There will be bad times. You're gonna be hit by problems, be that of your own making or not, and you need good people in your continuous leadership experience, be that in your inner circle or not, to keep you to help you sort out these bad times.
And what's your advice for young people today who, if somebody wants to build the kind of career you've built, if they want to make a difference in public service and be involved in politics in ways that can matter, what would your advice be for them at this stage in life?
Start local, volunteer in your community. I started very local. I came back to Colombia, but I was literally volunteering. First year law student, I was volunteer at City College for doing tutoring, and we became involved with some organizations, and that from there I got involved in other organizations, and Hillary Clinton was our senator from New York at the time, and I met her. I met Hillary Clinton. Well, I met her actually when I did a summer internship while I was in law school at the White House, but that was like this short. And actually then I went as a college student to Beijing, China in 1995 to hear her speak at the Women's Conference. But the first time I actually had a conversation with Hillary Clinton was at City College. When she was our senator, we had an event, and I connected with her. But this was like 2002 or something. So from there, but I was volunteering in some local organizations. In this city, by far the greatest city on earth, has so many opportunities for people to be active in your own community, and with that, learn about diversity, the globe, and also the great potential of America. So when I started the State Department, I remember first week, 2009, people, some other guy, I remain nameless, asked me, "What is your experience? How did you get this job?" I said, "Look, I know you went to Harvard and all the graduate school," and I said, "You know what my greatest experience is? I'm from New York City." And I had nothing more to say. That's the greatest degree I can have.
That's a great answer.
And you all have that already, so there you go.
And not only that, but I feel like in the course of that answer, you buried the lead for the whole thing, which is it all started at City College.
That's true.
Well, that too. Let's open it up for questions. So my colleague has a microphone. If you don't mind, put your hand up and he'll bring the microphone to you. If you don't mind, introducing yourself and then asking your question.
Sure. So, my name is Joshua. I am in Professor Dirk's class. So, my
That's
question.
you.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying that must be your professor.
I mean, So, my question is based on the fact that I heavily support DEI programs. So, relating back to earlier on in the interview, it's two questions. Hopefully, that's okay. Two-parter. So the first one is: did you volunteer for Clinton's campaign solely to have another woman be elected to office?
Did I volunteer for Hillary to get a woman in office?
Yes,
So-
for another woman to be elected. Yes.
Back in 2008, I mean, it helped that she was a woman, but the real reason I helped with the campaign is I thought she was the best candidate.
Okay. And the second part is based on hopefully not, but would your involvement in the Catholic community have impacted your decision to volunteer with the Democratic ballot if the candidate identified as perhaps non-binary, or is your political ideology void of religious bias?
That's a very loaded question. I don't really. I mean, I would have. Would I have volunteered for the Democratic Party if the candidate had been non-binary? I don't get the question. But the most important thing about my faith is the concept of love, as the Pope has said again and again. And that concept of love is what moves me to be a fighter for social justice, irrespective of whatever identity anybody has or chooses to have. So with that, I hope that answers your question.
Hello, my name's Ashil Abdo, and I'm also in Professor Moses's class. And my question was just, so you said you were a lawyer first, and then you went into politics, and then back to being a lawyer. How did your time in politics in the State Department kind of change the way you viewed yourself as a practicer of the law?
The sad thing about being a lawyer is that once a lawyer, always a lawyer. I guess that's good and bad. So when you're trained to be a lawyer, how many people want to be a lawyer? Lawyers. That's it? By the end of this, hopefully more, your brain is wired in such a way that you're always asking legal questions, even though they're not based on some jurisprudence. And the questions are always, like I said, why? Show me the proof. Why do we have to do this? Is there evidence? What are the facts? That's one piece of the lawyer. And the other piece of the lawyer is convincing people to do what you want them to do. Be that a country, a government, your colleague Eric, or a court. So lawyers are trained to advocate and make a case and present your story in a way that will get the other side or the judge or a third party or whoever to agree with your position. And in that regard, as a diplomat, that's a lot of what we do. So actually the legal training, both on the question of facts and how to put together a case, and on the question of the advocacy, on the issue of advocacy, were very useful.
Hello, I'm John. I'm an economics major and a junior here at City College. First, I just wanted to really say thank you for taking the time to come out here and
It's
speak to us
only around the
today.
corner.
And I know you mentioned the risk you took going to Washington. I just wanted to know if there were any other risks in the road to your successful career in public service and politics that you maybe didn't take, and how you made that decision.
Interesting. It's hard for me to think back, well, I didn't do that. I could have always picked another candidate. I could have supported Barack Obama at the beginning and not Hillary. I didn't know him. She was here. She was in New York. Maybe it's not a very good, maybe this is advice you shouldn't follow, which is I try not to look back and think, man, if only I could have, but I didn't. I haven't had anything, for whatever reason, whatever comes to me, I kind of adjust to what I get. The cards I'm dealt, I kind of work with what I got and then try to make the best of it. And so far, so good, right? Could have been more strategic about certain things, maybe. But I have learned that, ultimately, I have made the best with what I have been given to me.
Hello, how are you? My name is Syed Gulrais Shirazi. I'm a student of Professor Dirk Moses. I'm a student of International Relations and a junior at City College. My question to you is, I was reading your biography on the website, and it mentioned that you served as a diplomat to Spain and Andorra for the US government. So my question would be, as a diplomat for a government, you represent a government, what is the level of, I'd say, freedom of decision that you have in your position in a certain country representing who you're representing, the US government? What's the level between you making self-choices or basically, I'd say, making suggestions to the government's plan since you're acting as a representative? And where's the line between you thinking about a solution to the problem or you taking advice from the White House through the diplomatic channel? What's the line between
Yes, well, that's, it's nuance. So for the most part, you represent your headquarters. You got to follow instructions, and you get told, Ambassador so-and-so, you have to go in there and convince this government or tell this government this is how we're going to vote, for example, and please see if you can get them to vote with us because of X, Y, Z. And so you go in there and you say, this is why you should vote with us because it's in the best interest of us, the unit, but also your best interest for X, Y, Z reason. There are certain instances when things are they're complicated, and you're like to Washington, and you say, you know what, this is not the best time to bring this up. Or maybe we should do it like this. Or maybe instead of talking to this person, I should be talking to this other person. Or maybe I shouldn't be the one talking to this person. You should call that person and you deliver the message, but chances of this person saying no to me are high. So you can manage the message, the delivery, the way, the manner, the how, the when, and that's your job, to use your judgment to figure out, how to do this in the way that gets you the result you want. There's also times when you're like, I don't agree with this. And frankly, for me as a political person, because I was not career, there was, I think, a certain level of freedom to say to my other political people in the White House or in the State Department, I don't think this is a good idea. And then you fight it out. It takes forever, and people, say you're wrong, and then you're saying you're wrong, and then what are you going to do? Fire me? And so the president fires me. And he could, maybe, but he didn't. So these are the things those are rare battles that you have to be really ready to take on. For the most part, you go ahead and follow instructions, and you try to get the best result.
Hi, my name is Nikolai, and I am in a master's program in international affairs at CCNY. And my question to you is, What are some of the challenges in diplomatic negotiations? Like, what is it like? What should we expect when we go into negotiations with foreign government, like for example in Spain?
Yeah. Well, you have to do your homework, right? You have to make sure you understand what their interests are before you negotiate anything or bring anything up. It's always important to understand who your audience is anywhere, right? But for work purposes, for getting a treaty or some agreement, or even having people share things with you, because a lot of what we do is listen and try to understand people's positions, so that at some point when we need them to help us out in some way, we know where they're coming from and what they care about. If you know what they care about, you can better position yourself to try to address those interests and those needs and what they care about. So it's not just about you, right? It's really about also them. So understanding what they want, what moves them, who they are, even their personalities and their profiles, and, do they have kids? Do they like to go to the opera? I mean, random things that you may think are not relevant are useful to understand when negotiating with people.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for your time today. My name is Diana Saintville. I'm actually a part of the inaugural JD Masters in International Affairs dual degree program.
Excellent.
We graduated in 2020. It's my first time back on campus, so hello everyone.
All right.
And I would like to know, you spoke about your time during COVID and being overseas and having
Yes.
to go through unexpected challenges. And as I have gone through that, graduating through at the beginning of the pandemic, how would you say that you decided when you were going to take advantage of the opportunity and go for it, and when you were going to hold back, and how did you kind of like strike that balance in crafting your career versus actually doing what it is that you set out to do?
So before I go for it, whatever it is, I consult. I talk to my friends, I talk to mentors. I have to make sure that, changing jobs, trying to get a position that maybe it's not obvious. I have to ensure that I can get it, that it's not a stretch assignment, that I am, in that way I am very careful about coordinating efforts to get certain things. And maybe when I was younger, I used to just say, when I went to the Department of Education, I said, okay, I'm out, I'm going to, or even the first time I went to the State Department. Now, the last, 10 or 15 years, I'm much more thoughtful about, okay, is this the right position? Is this the right move? And how do I do it in a way that I have a good chance of achieving it, but also that it's really the best for me at this time in my career, in my personal life. And that requires me talking to, a set number of people who I trust, and that's what it means to accumulate friends and mentors along the way, who you also admire how they deliberate and how they make their decisions in their path they've taken, and really talk to them about how they see these steps or these actions for themselves, and how they would help me understand whether that's the best for my position.
Hi. I would like to ask you, what would and will the AI technology will change in future politics?
So AI is, it's so disruptive on so many levels in terms of, everything from manipulating facts and truth, but also helping us understand things more quickly, and perceptions and concepts. What it doesn't replace is the human contact. And for people who are in politics and in the diplomacy and the work that the State Department folks do and others in the world of foreign policy, there's nothing as important as showing up and looking at somebody's face and having a candid conversation and really understanding how do we manage a problem together and try to understand how to resolve it. AI can help you, research where this person is from, what do they like to eat, how did they behaved in the past, but nothing replaces that human contact and that eye-to-eye dialogue that is what makes diplomacy so unique and special. That will never have. No robot, no machine, no technology can replace that.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Yes.
My name is Mona. I'm majored in economics and international relations. I suppose you already know this, but City College is one of the very few institutions that's been very vocal about global injustices. So I wanted to kind of know more of your thought process about, I guess from a government perspective, and I wrote this down. Given the U.S. role in promoting democratic values globally, how do you reflect on the way the U.S. handles domestic protests and uprisings, and do you believe the current approach aligns with the values we encourage abroad?
Aligns with the values?
With the values that we encourage abroad.
Yes. So the great thing about the United States is in its position and its leadership in terms of promoting freedom of speech, democratic activity in all its forms and positions by people, diverse people in terms of their voice and their opinions. In the context of what we see here in this country, what we've seen historically, that is the way things have really evolved and change has taken place. And that's what we promote abroad, okay? That is what lots of us, many of us, right? They're promoting democracy, human rights, freedom of speech, freedom of the press. And so we want to make sure that for many, not only because it's the right things to do, but also our standing in the world depends on our ability to really be consistent in our values and principles. We have seen in the U.S. that as any democracy, our democracy has its problems, its deficiencies, that we can do better, that we can be a better role model for the world and for each other and for people here, and make sure that we're consistent, that our ability to tolerate, celebrate opposition is welcomed. But that has become, as you know, more and more complicated with time. And so for that, I am hopeful that because the system, the democracy is so strong, and the institutions, the courts, the universities, the press, organizations have such a history of tolerance, and they're so resilient that we can continue to be a role model for the world. That said, with anything we do, we have to follow the rules, and we have to make sure the rules allow us to coexist, and our protests and our ability to agitate are done in a peaceful manner, right? But if we do these things in a peaceful manner, there's no reason for us not to celebrate these types of questionings and protests and demands for peace or for whatever change in policy the public and the citizens want.
And this will be our last question.
Hi, my name is Farah, and I'm an economics student. My question is, you've had so many ebbs and flows throughout your career. What do you think is the biggest lesson you've learned, not only through the wins, but through the losses too?
Through the losses? Mm-hmm. Always listen to your mother. My mother's always right. I think that that has been a consistent, and beyond the mother, which is true, the community having a base. I always come back home to New York City. I go to Washington, as you all know, pretty much every time there's a Democrat. I've lived in different countries, but boy, once I and I need a reprieve and to be grounded and to have somebody be like, okay, where's the 6th train? You know, where nobody cares if you're an ambassador or not, you just want to sit, or you just want to be able to cross the street and walk your dogs in the park. New York City is the place to come. So that level of grounding that this city gives you, and the reality check is priceless. So for me, that having that community, could be another city, but this is mine, and this neighborhood, and the Bronx, and whatever. Just having that level of connectivity has been, has been probably one of the most important pieces of my life story. That New York, that community connection. Thank you.
It's a great note to end on for all of us who are here in New York. Thank you so much, Ambassador Reynoso. And please join me in thanking you. And I want to thank Rick and Susan Goings for making this series possible, and I want to thank Marco Antonio Oshant for introducing us to the ambassador. Thank you all very much for being here, and we wish you a good afternoon.
Thank you.